Yesterday we discussed on Kusum chart, previous class, for detecting the small shifts, and we have also little bit discussed about the acceptance sampling process. Today we will focus on EWMA chart, or exponentially weighted moving average chart. Information about past measurements can also be included in the control chart calculations by exponentially weighting the data. This strategy provides the basis for exponentially weighted moving average control chart. So here the control limits are also the, if the 3 sigma is the theoretical limit, then the control limits are provided by this particular formula. Let x bar denote the sample mean of the measured variable and z denote the EWMA of x bar. A recursive equation is used to calculate z, which is a function of k, here lambda x bar, k plus 1 minus lambda, z into k minus 1, while lambda is a constant and lambda's value is in between 0 to 1. Okay. A lot of things are written here, but you just want to know, you will have to know the basic things. Actually, EWMA chart, it looks like this. Okay. You can see that this is the mean, and the upper control limit and the lower control limits are also here, they are given. Okay. And you can also observe that EWMA, the upper control limit, first the steps are very sharp, and after that the sharpness gets reduced, and as the number of samples or the number of sample it goes higher, then what happens, it becomes almost it becomes almost a flat straight line. Okay. This is the nature of EWMA chart because of its equation. Let's take a look at the control chart, the formulas for control chart, control limits of EWMA chart. The upper control limit is provided by mu 0 plus L into sigma root under lambda divided by 2 minus lambda 1 minus 1 minus lambda whole to the power 2i. The same similar formula for lower control limit, only you will have minus sign, and the target is mu 0, which is your process mean. And the value of sigma is the process standard deviation. Okay. The value of sigma is your process standard deviation. And the constant lambda is a user specified smoothing value, usually in range from 0.05 to 0.3. So lambda value will be given in the question. Okay. So what will be the value of lambda? That will depend upon several factors, and we don't need to derive this formula. We just want to know this formula, and also these sensitivity analysis of lambda, that is not required here. Just know that lambda's value is in between 0.05 to 0.3, and it will be given in the question if some problem comes. And also the lambda value, basically we may derive it from, we may go with the trial and error method, and we can test the root mean square error and we can find out the optimal value. Anyway, it will be given in the question. The width of the control limit is controlled by the constant L, where the typical value of L is in the range of 2.7 to 3, corresponding to the usual 3 sigma control limits. So 3 sigma control limits you know. So the value of L can be 3, or in some cases it can be also 2.7 based on the problem that you are dealing with. So the control limits you can determine, and the researchers have seen that the 2.723 value of L can be used. The software does not calculate optimal lambda and L values. That is up to you, the programmer, to supply based on your experience with the EWMA chart. Note that the term 1 minus lambda whole to the power 2I approaches unity as I increases. This implies that the control limit of an EWMA chart will reach approximately steady state values. Okay, after some, when the I will have an increased value, what I told just now here. Okay, so now let's take a look at an example. Okay, so here let's discuss this. Instead of comparing the actual sampled value of each interval to the control limits, the EWMA chart calculates a stand-in value, which is a weighted sum of current and past values. Instead of comparing the actual sampled value of each interval to the current control limits, the EWMA chart calculates a stand-in value, which is weighted sum of current and past values. The formula for this calculation is this. So this is nothing but to determine the Z values, okay, or this is actually your EWMA values that is determined by using this formula. Okay. The stand-in value for a given sample interval Zi is lambda times the current actual value Xi. So Xi is the current value, current actual value. And 1 minus lambda, the previously calculated stand-in value, Zi minus 1. The value lambda is the smoothing factor for the calculation and has a permissible range of 0 to 1. The closer lambda is 0, the more the effect of previous values get averaged into the current value. The closer lambda is 0, the more effect of previous values get averaged into the current value. Conversely, the closer lambda is 1, the smaller the smoothing effect. The literature recommends that lambda be within the range of 0.05 to 0.3, which is much closer to 0 rather than 1, because to have greater smoothing effect, so that the previous values get averaged into the current value. When calculating the first sample interval at Zi, there is no value of Zi minus 1. So for the first observation, how do you calculate Zi minus 1? Because there is no previous observation. So typically for the first sample interval, this value, usually referred to as mu0, is assigned either a known process mean value or the value of the mean for the current set of actual sample values. When you use, what you use will depend on what you have available. So it can be either the process mean value, which depends upon the population, and or you can, if you know it, or you can also use the actual, the sample average value, sample mean value, that you can use here, zi minus 1. So suppose lambda is equal to 0.1 and L is equal to 3, and the starting value and the target value are calculated as the mean of the raw data, which is suppose 10.315. The sigma values used in the UCL and LCL calculation is calculated as the standard deviation of the raw data, which is suppose sigma is equal to 1.154. So let's take a look at an example. The idea will be clear. Here you can see that you have got some samples, okay, and you have these data you have found 9.45, 7.99, 9.29, 11.66, 12.16. So these are the sample values. So suppose you have, okay, or it can have, it may have, suppose instead of these values, there are several number of observations. Okay, if a subgroup is there, for example, the kind of example that you have seen for control chart for variables. Okay, there you have seen that we 8 consecutive days we have considered, and in each day you have got 6 samples, 6 subgroups. Okay. So that kind of thing also may happen. So in that case, you need to calculate the mean as well for all the groups. Okay. You need to calculate the mean as well. But here, since the sample, there is no such case. Okay. So your sample will be equal to the mean. So now what you will do, you need to calculate the EWM, exponential weighted moving average. You need to calculate from this data. You use this formula, and using this formula you need to calculate the EWM values. And also you can use you should use, in the first case that I have told you that there is no previous value. So typically you can put here 10.315, which is the average or the mean value of the sample, that you can put here, because in this case you do not know the population mean. So lot of Z values you have, you will get. What, how many observations are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 samples are there. So you will get 10 EWM values you will be getting, okay, by using that particular formula. So the mean is, you know, 10.315. So you plot the mean, and you also use this formula, upper control limit and lower control limit, to find out your UCL and LCL. And you can see that this is here also, this is very in earlier, at the earlier stage, you can see that very sharp steps are there. But as you proceed, as your I value increases, okay, here I is nothing but I is actually your the number of observations. So I is equal to 1. You put here the I is equal to 1, I is equal to 2, I is equal to 3, like that. Okay. So as your number of observations that it increases, so what will happen? Your you will get almost this value, this particular value will be equal to 1. It will approach towards 1. So you will get a steady line or straight line after some observations. So you will have the upper control limit and lower control limit like this. And now it's your duty to plot the EWMA values. Okay. So you are plotting here the EWMA values. Now you need to check whether these values are within the control limits or not. Okay. And you can see that for the first 2 observations, the values are beyond the lower control limit. Okay, so you can state, or you can say that the process is not under the process of statistical quality control. Okay, so you can say that. And if you want to know more in details, you can go through this link. You will get more background about the EWMA charts. Okay. The initial chart represents a sample run where the process is considered to be in control. Therefore, it is a suitable source of data to calculate the UCL, LCL, and target control limit. The control limit lines and values displayed in the chart are a result of these calculations. What you don't want to do is constantly recalculate control limits based on current data, because once the process goes out of control, you will be incorporating these new out of control values into the control limit calculations, which will widen the control limits. Instead, as you move forward, you apply the previously calculated control limits to the new sample data. When the process starts to go out of control, it should produce alarms when compared to the control limits calculated when the process was in control. You can simulate this using the interactive chart above. That is what I said, that it will be afterwards, it will be like a straight line. So now the thing is that you need to compare the Kusum versus EWM. You have observed that Kusum chart or cumulative sum chart, that is used to detect the shifts in the process mean. The EWMA chart, that also do the same thing, but then why Kusum and EWMA chart both are required? The reason is that in case of Kusum chart, mostly you are able to detect the shifts for the later observations. If you can recall or remember, just have a look at your Kusum chart. In earlier cases, you have seen that the data are within or around the target, but then the Kusum values, they go away from the mean, and you are able to understand that the mean is gradually shifting. But if you have a look at the EWMA chart, you can see that in the first two observations, you have been able to detect the shifts in the process mean. Okay. So what happens, EWMA chart is normally fruitful to detect the shifts in the process mean for the early observations, whereas Kusum chart can detect the shift in process mean for the later observations. Okay. So that's why it is better to use Kusum chart and EWMA chart both for calculating or for understanding the drift or shift in the process mean. Okay. Now there is another chart. This is known as X bar and S chart. This is a very simple chart. X bar chart we have already discussed about X bar when we have discussed X bar and R chart during that time. You already know the X bar chart. So sometimes in the business applications or industrial process, ACE chart also used. ACE means nothing but the sample standard deviation. Okay. So so that you can understand the variations of the samples, okay, or different groups, which is also important. So let's take a look at an example. Suppose you have got 5 samples, each consisting of 15 observations collected from process. So the sample means and standard deviations are calculated. That means you have got 5 samples, each sample has got 15 observations. So you can calculate the sample mean. For sample number 2, you have got 15 observations, you can calculate the sample mean, and likewise you can calculate the sample mean for all the samples. And you can also calculate the sample standard deviation. Okay, so for 15 number of observations are there, so you can also calculate the sample standard deviations. Here you can calculate the X double bar, the grand mean you can calculate, and also the grand mean, the mean of the standard deviation, that you can also calculate. And for the standard deviation, you have got this formula. The derivation of the formula is not required. The upper control limit and the lower control limit, these formula are given here. Okay, upper control limit and the lower control limit formula. So you can use this formula. You can put the values of X double bar and N and S sample standard average of sample standard deviation values, and you can also calculate the C4, which is a constant that depends upon the sample size. Okay, so you can also calculate that if you know the N value, sample size you know, so which is nothing but sample size value. How many samples you have got, you can calculate, you can put these values and you can calculate the C4. And you can obviously put this chart. Okay. You can plot this kind of usual upper control limit and lower control limit, and you can check whether the standard deviation goes beyond the control limit or not. Okay, because this is also important for different samples. So this is all about the control chart. Okay, so now we will be discussing, we will move on to the next chapter we started already. So we will continue with that single sampling plans. There are mainly 3 types of sampling plans: single sampling plan, double sampling plan, and multiple sampling plan. So what is single sampling plan? When a decision on acceptance or rejection of the lot is made on the basis of only one sample, the acceptance plan is known as a single sampling plan. In a single sampling plan, three members are specified as follows. Capital N is equal to lot size from which the sample is drawn. Small n is equal to sample size, and C or A is equal to acceptance number. If the sampling plan is capital N is equal to 50, small n is equal to 5, and C is equal to 1, it means take a sample of 5 items from a lot of 50. If the sample contains more than one defective, reject the lot, otherwise accept it. So this is very simple procedure of a single sampling plan, where you do the sampling for just once in case of a lot. Now take a look at the double sampling plan. In double sampling plan, the decision on acceptance or rejection of the lot is based on two samples. That means here 2 times you take the sample from a lot, if required. Okay. A lot may be accepted at once if the first sample is good enough, or rejected at once if the first sample is bad enough. If the first sample is neither good enough nor bad enough, the decision is based on the evidence of first and second sample combined. In a double sampling plan, the parameters are as follows. Suppose N1 is equal to number of pieces in the first sample. C1, it is the acceptance number for the first sample. N2 is equal to number of pieces in the second sample. N1 plus N2 is equal to number of pieces in the two samples combined. C2 is equal to acceptance number for the two samples combined. Okay. It means the rejection limit for the first sample and the acceptance or rejection limit for the second sample as well. So suppose take a look at an example, the idea will be clear here. Double sampling plan is also, in many cases, double sampling plan is also implemented, and you will be practically dealing with this kind of problem in industries. So it is important to know. Suppose if the double sampling, in a double sampling plan, suppose capital N is equal to 500, small n1 is equal to 35, small n2 is equal to 50, C1 is equal to 1, C2 is equal to 4. So what you will interpret from these values? So the first is take a first sample of 35 items from a lot of 500 and inspect. That means in this lot there are 500 items, and out of these 500 items you will take first sample, you will take 35 items and you will inspect them. So after the inspection, accept the lot on the basis of first sample if it contains only 0 or 1 defective. So out of these 35 items, if you found no defective there, or if there is only 1 defective item, you will instantly accept the lot. That means you will not go for the second sampling at all. Okay, but the entire procedure will be obviously treated as double sampling plan. So you will, in that case, you will accept the lot. Suppose reject the lot on the basis of the first sample if it contains more than 4 defectives. Suppose out of these 35 items, if you get 4 defectives or more than 4 defectives, then you will, if you get more than 4 defectives out of these 35 items, then you will instantly reject the lot, because you will conclude that the lot is bad enough to reject. Okay. Now, if you get from the first sampling, if you get if you get this within the range of 1 to 2 to 4, then what will do? So take a second sample of 50 items if the first sample contains 2, 3 or 4 defectives. Are you able to understand it? So if you have no defective for the first sample, then you will accept the lot. If you have got only one defective, you will accept the lot. If you have no defective at all, if you have more than 4 defective, then you will reject the lot. But if you have 2 defectives or 3 defectives or 4 defectives, then you cannot conclude whether to accept the lot or reject the lot, because the first sampling tells you that the sample is not good enough, neither good enough nor bad enough. So you need to go for second sampling process. So then accept the lot on the basis of first and second sample combined if the combined sample of 85 items contains 4 or less defectives. So, and reject the lot on the basis of combined sample if the combined sample contains more than 4 defectives. So what you will do? You will take after the second sampling. In the second sampling case, you will be n2 is equal to 50. So you will collect 50. You will take up 50 items from the 500. Then again for the second sampling, you will be taking 50 items out of these 500 items. Okay, not these 35 items. Excluding these 35 items, you will be picking up then again 50 items. And if you get that among these total there are 85 items. So among these 85 items, if you get a total of 4 items, 4 defectives or less defectives, then you will accept the lot. But if you get more than 4 defectives, then you will reject the lot. So what can happen in case of this 50, when you are testing this 50 second sample? So 0 or 1 defective in the first, the lots thus may be accepted in the following ways. Number 1, 0 or 1 defective in the first sample without taking the second sample. Okay, so this I have already described. Now the second case is 2 defectives in the first sample followed by 0, 1 or 2 defectives in the second sample. So out of 35 items, suppose you have got 2 defectives, and out of 50 items, then you have, suppose you have got no defective or 1 defective or 2 defectives, then your total defective remains less than 4 or less than 4. So you will accept the sample in that case. And you can have also 3 defectives in the first sample followed by 0 or 1 defective in the second sample. There also you are not having more than 4 defectives total. Or you can also have 4 defectives in the first sample followed by 0 defective in the second sample. So in that case also your total number of defectives do not pass or is not beyond 4. So the probability of accepting the lot in the sum of probabilities of these different ways in which it may be accepted. Okay. So this is all about the double sampling plan. Now again, there is also multiple sampling plan. The phrases multiple sampling plan is generally used when the 3 or more samples of stated size are permitted and when the decision on acceptance or rejection must be reached after a stated number of samples. The phrase sequential sampling is generally used when a decision is possible after each item has been inspected and when there is no specified limit on the total number of units to be inspected. Okay, total number when there is no specified limit on the total number of units to be inspected. However, some writers use the two phrases interchangeably. A multiple sampling procedure can be represented on a table such as following. Okay. So you need to understand that a multiple sampling plan is generally specified when you have not good idea about your lot. Okay, so in that case what happens, you do the sampling first you take a very small sample, then gradually you increase your sample size. Okay, so you just have a look at this data, that here the a multiple sampling plan. In the multiple sampling plan there are more than 2 steps. So in the first sampling, the sample size is N1 and your acceptance number is C1 and the rejection number is R1. Okay. In the second sampling, your sample size is N2. Okay. So your total you are considering N1 plus N2, and out of this total N1 plus N2, the acceptance number will be N2 and your rejection number will be R2. Okay. So in this way, you will proceed, and obviously in the last case, final case, it will be C5 plus 1. That is quite natural, because if you get less than, if you get C5 or less than it, you will accept the lot, and otherwise you will reject the lot. So from this sample, the idea will be very clear for a multiple sampling plan. Now let's take a look at an example. Multiple sampling plan will generally involve less total inspection than the corresponding single or a double sampling plan, guaranteeing the same protection, but they usually require higher administrative costs and higher a multiple sampling plan will and higher caliber inspection personnel may be necessary to guaranteed proper use of the plan. So there are, you can see that there is advantage and disadvantage as well of this plan. It generally it costs less total inspection cost than the corresponding single or double sampling plan, but it requires high administrative cost and higher caliber inspection personnel, like that. So let's take a look at this thing, that your lot size is, for example, 800 to 1299. Okay, this is your lot size. So cumulative sample sizes, so you can understand that usually multiple sampling plan, it is preferred when you have a very high lot size. It is better to use a multiple sampling plan. Okay, because if you do only a single sampling plan, then you will face a lot of you will have to inspect a lot of samples you need to inspect a lot of samples. Okay, if you want to do single sampling plan or double sampling plan, a lot of samples you will have to do, and you will incur a lot of cost, inspection cost. Okay, because your sample size will be very high in that cases. Okay, so it's better having an approach of sequential sampling, which is actually followed in uh, multiple sampling. Also, in case of double sampling, it is followed, but to some extent, it is limited to 2 steps only. Whereas in multiple sampling plan, there is no such limitation. It can be even 5 or beyond that 5. You can take the steps. Okay. So in the for first case, you can see that your cumulative your sample size is 40. Okay, so your N1 is equal to 40. Here, actually, you are representing the cumulative sample size. Okay. Here, these are the sample size, and here the cumulative sample size. This is given. So for the first step, you have taken up 40 items, and your acceptance number is suppose 0, and your rejection number is 5. So if you get only if you get no defective at all, okay, then you will accept the lot, and if you get 5 defective, then you will reject the lot. Okay, 5 or more defectives, then you will reject the lot. Now, if you get within this range, that means suppose out of the 40 items, you have got 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 defective items, then what you will do? You will take 20 items. You will take up another 20 items, and then you will inspect those items. So your cumulative sample size will be 40 plus 20 is equal to 60. And if you get out of those 60 items, if you get a total if you get a defective or less than, sorry, 1 defective if you get, then you will accept the lot. Or if it is not like that, then you will reject the lot. Okay. So in that case, in this case, you can clearly understand that suppose for the first step, you have got, suppose your acceptance, suppose you have got 2 defects you have got, or for example you have got suppose 3 defects, then you can understand that you cannot take just 20 samples in that case. Why 20 samples you cannot take? Because if you take another 20 samples, your cumulative sample size will be 60, and your acceptance number is 1. Your acceptance number is 1 and rejection number is 6. So automatically this sampling will not be valid. So you need to look for the chart where you have the acceptance number of 3. So suppose you have got 3 defectives in case of the out of this 40 items. So you can see that this is only possible in case of 100 cumulative size. So after 40, you will be taking up another 60 samples, and then you will be checking whether these out of those 100 items you are getting 3 items defective or not, that you will check. Okay. So in that way you need to proceed. So and if you get rejection number is 8 or more than that, then you will reject the lot. Or suppose if you get in between, then you will again you will take up the 120 and 160 cumulative sample size, then that means you will again go for 20 items or 60 items based on the defective items you will have. If you get 5 defective items, then you can go for another 20 samples you can take. Or if you get suppose 7 defective items, then you need to go for these 60 items, you need to take another. Okay. So, okay, so I'm going to end the class now. I'm going to stop the recording.